Welcome to Business Secrets from our Billionaire Dad. This is Sierra. I'm Bree, and we've got our dad, Randall, with us.
Hi, everybody. It's good to be here.
Hey, daughter takeover. Yep.
That's what we want. Awesome. So, today we're going to talk about partnerships. We want to talk specifically about the pros and cons as to why you would and wouldn't want to have a partner. And there are a lot of good reasons why you would, and there are a lot of good reasons why you wouldn't. And I can tell you from my personal experience, I've had some good partnerships and I've had a lot of bad partnerships. And I mean bad because they ended badly. And when I say that, the biggest concern is that you start out friends, but you do have different expectations. And sometimes those expectations are what cause the problem.
Much like in real life. This sounds like something you'd take as serious as real life dating. Do I want to get into a relationship with this person?
That's exactly right, because you are getting into a relationship. It's just a financial one, but it is still a relationship. And you're exactly right, because everybody has different philosophies. They have their own different ideas. They have ideas as to how they think something should be done or not done. And so I think that, partnerships are a double-edged sword. And we definitely want to make sure that you recognize that there are advantages to them, which are huge, and disadvantages, which are huge. So you've got to be okay with figuring out what that is and then take it from there.
I can only imagine what good communication or even communication styles, how valuable that would be, even with this, because you're making such important decisions and have to make sure that you are completely on the same page in each of the decisions.
Exactly right. Yep. I think the first step, the first secret I would tell you about partnerships is the biggest of all of them. I'm going to say it as the number one thing to do and the last thing to do. And that is write it down.
Mm.
Make a contract because a lot of times we have friends, we have family, we want to do it on handshake. I am probably the biggest culprit to that, where I want to just give somebody my word, and that word is my bond, and I will live to that bond. But I will tell you from personal experience that if you write down what that arrangement is and you have it in writing, and those that needs to be everything spelled out. If you're going to be a partner, that means what's the partnership percentage? Who owns what? Who's going to make the hard decisions? Who's going to make the final decisions? Is the other person going to be okay with those final decisions? What's the input going to look like? How much money is involved? Who's going to put up how much money? Because I will tell you that as soon as money crosses the table, everything changes.
Yeah. So, number one, what you're saying is really solidify the ownership percentage.
That's right. And when you're doing that, you're also going to talk about the shared responsibilities.
Hmm.
Whose responsibilities are what? You've got somebody who might be very, very good at numbers and running the books, and you might have somebody else who's very, very good at visions and following the dream and focusing on the dream. And most of the time, it's the dreamer who is pulling it together and getting everything going. On the other hand, they can be great relationships and then they can also be very bad because they can come up, there can be a lot of conflict with that. But the key thing is define the relationship. What's that? The
DTR.
DTR. The DTR. We're defining the relationship when we're doing this. So let's look at that just like we would a relationship.
Can I say a quick personal story about this, just
Uh-huh.
or an example? And I hope my business partner Jamie is okay with me sharing this, but we didn't do that. We jumped in all 4 feet, both of us, and we just went off the dream and the excitement of it. And we didn't have those conversations to really solidify what the responsibilities were, what the expectations were. We also didn't live in the same place. So a lot of times the communication wasn't quite there. We didn't have that established on what that would look like. And it was really hard. It could have easily fractured not only the business, but also our friendship. We did end up having a breaking point where we had to get together and sit down because we are great friends and the way we are. There were some tears involved and it was emotional, but we were very honest with each other and got to a place where we did figure it out. But it would have been so much easier had we done that from the very beginning.
That's right.
I mean, I do think we now have a really great understanding, but that was a really big challenge.
I've had several relationships, partnerships that have turned that way because I have a tendency to do it on a handshake. And Andrea, my wonderful partner, she's very, very good at recognizing where we make mistakes and making sure that we are putting it in writing. Sometimes that doesn't necessarily have to be a legal contract because people get all freaked out. Oh, I got to pay an attorney to do it, which you should, quite frankly, you should pay an attorney 300 or 400 bucks to get an actual contract that's written and signed. On the other hand, even if you have a yellow pad and you write it down and you both agree to it, at least you've got the basics. And a lot of times those basics are pretty key. Now that works a lot better when neither one of you have a lot of money you're putting in. But if you are putting in money, I want you to know that that defines all of it. Someone that puts in 10% versus somebody that puts in 90%, that person that puts in 90% automatically feels like they have a 90% piece. Even though you say, well, I'm going to do all the work, I'm the one managing it. That's true. And that's good. And that might give you some additional benefit. Maybe instead of a 10%, you get a 20%. But if one person walks in with no money, the other person walks in with all the money, they can't expect there to be a 50-50 split. You can't do that because money talks. And I'll give you an example. One of the first big real estate deals that I had, we had to come up with $250,000 to get into the deal. I didn't have it. Now, that's one of the reasons why you have a partner is because sometimes you need a partner. And the needing the partner is the key. Remember, we had that conversation earlier. You only bring in a partner if you have to. Well, I had to have a partner because I needed to find $250,000 on a $6 million purchase. I had to get that money. I happen to have $55,000. So what I did is I found a partner who also had $55,000 and he matched my portion. Then we took our $110,000 and we found a guy that would go in and pay the other portion of it. So he comes in as the money backer, and his name was Matt. We came in with an equal share of 55,000 apiece. Now we become co-partners in a way, and then we've got this investor, right?
Okay.
This was that 60-acre parcel that we were trying to subdivide into 250 lots. And basically, Matt said, here, you're going to do it. You're going to do all of it. And I ended up having to do all the legwork. I remember you've heard me tell the stories of
Mhm.
going out to the farmer and sitting in his swather with him, trying to strike the deal and put everything together. And I had to wait for him to take his daily nap and all the different things to get that deal solidified to where he would be okay with us coming in and doing what we were going to do because this was his baby, had it for years. And then getting all those pieces put together, including going to the city, getting it rezoned, getting the master plan amended, all the different pieces. Even when we did all that, I felt like I had put in all the work. And that's what happens is immediately there becomes resentment. There becomes different perspectives on who needs to do what. So I'm going, wait, Matt, I'm doing all the work. And then I had this epiphany. And Matt had been in the business for a long time. So I was actually approaching him. He saw it as an opportunity, but he didn't want to do the work. He was willing to give me all of his expertise. He was willing to give me all of the knowledge that he had. Now, the reason why it worked even still is because he became my mentor.
Mhm.
We were still equal partners on the money side. And it was the equal partnership on the money side that made all the difference.
Mhm.
Even though I did all the work, we split everything equally. And then I got a sixth, he got a sixth, and the other guys got the other 4/6.
So you guys ended up creating what matched the equivalent of your work and his work. And then that created that expectation and then the balance there.
Yep. I had another experience where I had a partner and she brought a deal to me. And I was the financer and I was the one that put up the bank loan. I'm the one that put my name on it. What she brought to the table was she owned the house that we were then going to subdivide behind it. We put in three duplexes behind her current house that she had. So because she put up the house, she did most of the work when it came to the running around and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I came in and I did all of the money side of it. And still, because I had done the money side of it, I felt like that I had more of the control. When it came to selling, I was the final decision maker on when to sell and for how much to sell it for because I had put up the money. So I think what I've learned is that the money side of it is everything.
We've talked a little bit about specific types of partnerships. How do those different types of partnerships come in hand when you actually have definitions to it?
So if it's just you and your friend, then you got a 50-50 partnership here. But again, it comes down to the money because if the friend puts up 80% of the money and you put up
Mm-hmm.
20%, you can't expect 50%. Even though you may end up doing all the work because that is your role, it's not an equal amount. It might be that the person that does the money gets 51 or 60%, and then you have to come in and you have to settle for a smaller cut. If you're doing it as a business with shareholders, then you would identify it that way as shareholders of the company. It has to be all defined right at the beginning.
Are shareholders essentially then investors in the company? So they're bringing in money and then they're getting a percentage of the business.
Correct. And that percentage at the other end is also a complicated piece because that can be anything from, let's say you have one person who has a fifth of the company. So they have a 20% cut of the company. That could mean that they get 20% of all the profits that are made before you even pay anybody, or the net profits, or it can just be your net after tax profits. There's all different types of ways that you want to structure it in a way so that everybody wins, but you don't make the company suffer.
Investors, are they venture capitalists? Is that the
In
type
a
of
in a
partnership
micro
it is?
way, yeah. In a micro way, they're venture capitalists. They're buying in to your
Okay.
idea, your business.
So with Matt, with you shaking his hand, would you say technically he had in his mindset that he was a venture capitalist where he invested in it, but he didn't want to do the actual work?
Well, that's where the expectations were different.
Yeah,
Yeah. He thought the
exactly. Yeah.
expectation was, hey, great, I'll give you all the guidance you need to do and you're on your way. I thought, oh, well, great, I've got a guy that knows everything that
Mm-hmm.
can be done. I didn't realize it meant I was going to do all the work. On the other hand, I'm really grateful it worked the way it did because I
Mm-hmm.
learned how to do it. And it didn't take long for me to catch on and recognize how important his knowledge for me was. And so I would come to him with challenges. Okay, we had an issue with the sewer system for whatever reason. It wasn't going to go in correctly or it needed to go this direction or whatever. And he could give me direct information, say, well, try this. Have you looked at this? Let's go together. Let's go check this out. So he wasn't a silent partner. He was an active partner, but he gave me the wings to let me learn how to do it without making mistakes because it was his money too.
Okay, so it does sound like you figure it out together with whoever you're working with. You sit down and you figure out the details of the percentage, the amount of money, the expectations, what work is going to be done per person, and get it all written out in a contract, which
Accountability, who's going to account to who makes the final
who makes the
decisions.
final decisions, and obviously hire someone, or I'm sure you could get some help from ChatGPT now. But there's not too many rules to it. You just want to make sure you both agree 100%.
The key thing there really is that you have to agree. You have to recognize that there's a lot of uncharted water and you've got to be okay with that. But you also have to recognize that the money speaks And you could be doing all the work in the world, and if the other person does not have the same expectation you have, you'll still struggle. So there's a couple of downsides. I made some notes. You've got to make sure that you're clear on the shared profits. You need to also make sure that you cover the fact that there will be conflict, there will be disagreements, and whose final decision are you going to go with? And if you decide that it's going to be you or if it's going to be the other person, then you've got to be okay with giving your opinion. And if they still don't agree, you've got to be able to trust that their decision is still going to work. You can't have battles over the small things. You want to make sure that the decisions are made together with a final decision maker. And then you also have to have exit strategies. You got to have a decision together whether you're going to exit this together, or let's say someone decides that things don't go the way they want. How are they going to get bought out? They've come up with this amount of money and then they want out. They don't like the way the arrangement's working. They don't like the decisions that you're making. So they want to get out. You need to cover what happens when they decide they want to get out. Does that mean that you have to come out of pocket money to pay them? Does that mean that they get paid first monies as they come in the door till they're paid? Because you can structure it to where that other person gets first rights till they're paid off so that they
Mm.
get paid right out of the gate, or they get a higher percentage initially until they're paid out. But you also got to be able to determine how much that's going to be, because right now at the beginning, it's just an idea. It's not worth anything yet.
So every business needs vows and a prenup.
So true.
You
That
get your
is
stuff in order.
absolutely correct. That is absolutely right. In fact, if more businesses had a prenup, I think it would probably be a very good thing. That is a great way to think about it. Absolutely. Um, I, I,
Awesome.
I do want to express, and Brianna, to kind of cover your question, there are a lot of different ways to form a partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to entities and how are you going to put together the entity, that can be an LLC, which is the easiest. And do you guys want to have conversations about the difference between a limited liability and a corporation and all those kind of things, S corps, C
I
corps?
think we yeah, should. For sure. That sounds like even kind of a next episode or in a couple episodes because I like how we have had the conversations pretty much in line with really if you are starting a business, this is how you do it through the episodes.
Okay, well, good. Well, we still need to form an LLC together if we're building a partnership because you don't want your house that's on the hook and she doesn't want her house on the hook. And I say houses because entities are protection against private personal things. And as long as you have two people that are partnering on a business, then you want the business to be the liability, not the individual assets.
Okay.
So we'll cover the differences and why you choose one over the other at another time. But I do think that it's important that you recognize that part of putting together a partnership is putting together the entity that partnership is going to live under. And during that entity, there's going to be articles of incorporation, which is like these are the ground rules. These are the ground rules that we're going to both live by. If we want to change the ground rules down the road, we can, but let's put some ground rules in place from your side. It can
Mm-hmm.
be that easy. So, defining the role, I love DTR. That's the whole key. In fact, we might want to, make that the theme of this, the
DTR.
define the relationship.
Yeah.
The define the relationship because it isn't just for partnerships, it's even with independent contractors, even with our business now. Every time I bring somebody along, I have an agreement that we have put together, and I'm still not even a stickler on some of that, and I should be. But once we have the ground rules and the ground rules aren't met, now you have a reason to be upset.
Awesome.
So, Bree, give me your takeaway for the day.
Yeah, I think hearing your history of partnerships, I've always wondered what that looked like and recognizing that really just same thing that we talked about even last episode, putting it on paper, writing it down, defining it, recognizing the roles in each other's partnership, because I think it can get a little bit uh murky
Yep.
if you are friends or family or just a close relationship, and even partnerships become close. So it's good to recognize that sometimes defining a partnership doesn't always mean, oh, my partner is my best friend. It's my partner is my partner, and these are the expectations to what that partner is. Yeah, I think again, putting this all on paper
Mm-hmm.
is just huge. I think that sometimes, at least in my own experience, I feel like we don't want to hurt someone's feelings, or the emotions become such a huge thing that we think, oh, we just trust each other, maybe we don't need to do this, or we I don't want them to feel like I don't trust them. But really, it's just protecting each other, protecting the relationship, protecting the business. And it's better to know than to just question or hope or expect. So I think it really is just being honest and laying things out. Just plan ahead.
Well, and it shows too that we are all human and emotions do sometimes get in the way of logic. So always having it on paper to go back to when you are having those emotions come up is really good to help define when you are feeling that resentment or frustration if you're doing more work than you thought you would be. So that makes sense.
Awesome. Next episode, we're going to take this to the next step. Cool.
Awesome. Thanks
Woo.
for listening.